So, this is where the key to Bind Prison was stored away. Impressive work. All switches activated.
And I am going to take it! Goodbye!
So, you are my liberator. Did you get my warning? You had your chance to escape my mayhem.
Leave them alone!
Open up!
No! What are you doing?
In you go, child.
Yo, what's good, YouTube family? Your boy Gaming Guru 2007 is back with another absolute banger of a video reaction. And let me tell you something. This Garten of Banban boss comparison video just broke my brain, and I am here for it. First off, can we just take a moment to appreciate how insane the evolution of these boss monsters has been throughout the series? Like, when I first saw Banban in the original game, I thought, okay, this is pretty creepy. But nothing could have prepared me for what they did in games 6, 7, and 8. The artistic progression is just chef's kiss, magnificent. Let's start with game 1 because oh my god the nostalgia. Looking at that original Banban design now, compared to what we have in the later games, is like comparing a crayon drawing to the Mona Lisa. No offense to the original artists, y'all started something legendary. But seriously, that simple red coloring on the first Banban boss, pure, classic, perfection. It established the foundations for everything that came after. Game 2 is where things started getting spicy, and I am absolutely living for how they expanded the color palette. The blue variant of Banban was giving me serious Five Nights at Freddy's vibes, but with that unique Garten of Banban twist that just hits different. You know what I mean? And don't even get me started on how the shading techniques improved. You can literally see the artists growing more confident with each iteration. But Game 3? Game 3 said hold my juice box and went absolutely feral with the designs. The green colorway on that boss monster was giving me serious Hulk energy, but if the Hulk was trapped in a kindergarten nightmare realm. The way they incorporated those darker undertones while still maintaining that unsettling childlike aesthetic? Genius. Absolute genius. I remember when this dropped, I watched like 47 different playthroughs because I couldn't get enough of seeing people's reactions to that boss reveal. Moving into Game 4 and 5 territory, this is where the series really found its visual identity, in my opinion. The purple and orange variants respectively were just immaculate, and I will die on this hill. Game 4's purple boss had this almost regal quality that was simultaneously terrifying and majestic. Like, this monster could absolutely destroy me, but I'd thank it for the privilege, you feel me? And Game 5's orange coloring was giving me serious autumn vibes, which was so unexpected, but worked perfectly with the overall atmosphere they were building. The artists really understood the assignment by this point, and were just showing off at this point, honestly. Can we talk about the glow-up that happened between Game 5 and 6, though? Because wow. Game 6 introduced that sick yellow colorway, and the detail work was just next level. You can see individual textures now. The lighting effects are more sophisticated. And don't even get me started on how they improved the facial expressions. That boss looked like it had real emotions behind those eyes, and that's both impressive and absolutely terrifying. Game 7 is where I think they peaked artistically, though Game 8 might have something to say about that. That teal cyan color scheme was so unique and unexpected. Like, who thinks to make a horror monster teal? But somehow it worked, and worked beautifully. The way that color interacted with the lighting in the kindergarten setting created this almost ethereal, otherworldly vibe that gave me chills in the best possible way. And then, Game 8 came along and said, "You thought you'd seen everything with that stunning pink variant." I'm not even joking when I say I gasped out loud when I first saw this design. Pink is not a color you typically associate with horror, but somehow they made it work so well. It's giving me cotton candy nightmare energy, and I am absolutely obsessed. But here's what really gets me hyped about this comparison video. Seeing all these boss monsters lined up together really showcases the incredible artistic journey this series has taken. You can literally watch the artist's skills evolve game by game. The proportions get more refined. The color theory becomes more sophisticated. The texturing improves dramatically, and the overall design philosophy becomes more cohesive, while still maintaining that signature Garten of Banban weirdness that we all know and love. Let's talk technical stuff for a hot minute, because I know some of y'all are art nerds like me. The way they've improved their shading techniques from Game 1 to 8 is actually insane. In the early games, you've got pretty basic cell shading, which worked fine for the style they were going for. But by Games 6, 7, and 8, they're incorporating complex lighting systems, subsurface scattering on some of the skin textures, and even some subtle environmental reflections that make these monsters feel like they actually exist in their spaces, rather than just being pasted on top of backgrounds. The color theory progression is also fascinating from an artistic standpoint. Early games stuck to pretty basic primary and secondary colors, your reds, blues, greens, safe choices that work well and establish clear visual distinction between variants. But as the series progressed, they started experimenting with more complex color relationships. That teal in Game 7? That's not just teal. That's a carefully chosen blue-green that creates visual tension with the warm yellows and oranges in the environment. Smart design choices. And can we appreciate how they've maintained visual consistency while still allowing each boss to feel unique? That's actually really hard to do. Each monster clearly belongs to the same universe and follows the same design language, but they all have their own personality and visual identity. The purple boss feels regal and mysterious. The orange one has this autumnal melancholy vibe. The yellow variant is almost cheerful in a disturbing way. And that pink boss is giving me bubblegum horror realness. I also want to shout out how they've handled the facial expressions across all these variants. In early games, the expressions were pretty static. Creepy, sure, but not super dynamic. But look at these later iterations. You've got subtle variations in eye shape, mouth positioning, even the way the eyebrows, or whatever those things above the eyes are positioned. Each boss conveys a slightly different emotional state, which adds so much depth to the horror experience. The anatomy improvements are also worth mentioning. Early Banban bosses were a bit, let's say, interpretive in their proportions, which worked fine for the style, but these newer versions have this uncanny valley quality where they're almost anatomically correct, but just wrong enough to be deeply unsettling. That's peak horror design right there. Familiar enough to recognize, wrong enough to disturb. From a gameplay perspective, because I know some of y'all are wondering, these visual improvements also serve functional purposes. The more detailed and visually distinct each boss becomes, the easier it is for players to quickly identify which variant they're facing and adjust their strategies accordingly. Good game design is when the aesthetics serve the gameplay and vice versa, and this series has really nailed that balance.